Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Jonathan Barrett. I'm a sole advisor here at AgriTec International, and I'm here today to talk to you guys about feed value, how to increase the feed value protein content on your hay, and really give the cattle what they need. That term gets tossed around a lot in the industry. What is feed value? How do we increase it? But the problem is we focus so much on three main essential nutrients and producing as much hay as possible that we leave out what really makes a good quality. It's a lot like getting a high quality steak versus getting a steak from Denny's. One is going to be really good quality that you're shooting for, and the other one is going to be very, very low tier that nobody really wants to digest. So, what we're seeing there with crude protein and what we're going to kind of go over today is not only how to increase it, but what tests to pull, what are the right times. And I always like to kind of start off with to look for on your forage quality samples. Couple different acronyms we're going to be going over today. A lot of people know RFV, which is going to be your relative feed value. Now, this is an older test and an older term for it. So your relative feed value, like I said, older index, it combines NDF and intake potential and ADF digestibility. Why it matters, it essentially just scores your hay where it ranks. Now, a better test that's quite a bit newer is you're going to be your RFQ, which is relative forage quality, quite a bit newer index, and definitely does the digestibility, the NDFD into the formula. Why that matters. Cows don't just need tonnage, they need digestible tonnage. RFQ predicts performance much more than accurately, especially for grasses. NDF neutral detergent fiber, total cell wall fraction, cellulose, hemulose, and lignin. NDF controls intake, percentage goes up as cattle eat less. And then we also have, ADF acid detergent fiber. It is tied to digestibility as well. Lower the ADF, the more digestible the forage is, and the harder it is to digest the fiber. With that being said, let's start going into where to start on your forage quality. I think the first place to start in the season, whether you're doing cold season forages for your winter, your fescue, your ryegrass through the winter time, or going into the springtime, it's always good to pull a soil sample to really see, okay, where am I standing? Where's the pH at? Where's my fertility at? Where are my micronutrient levels at? Most important thing there for feed value is focusing on the pH first. Everything falls on the back of pH. And so if you have a very low pH, your nutrient uptake is going to decrease exponentially. Iowa State University did research on that, and you're just at a 5.8. I mean, you're losing about 30% of all nutrient uptake that you're putting down. It's a lot of fertilizer waste, a lot of money that could be going into your grasses to improve forage quality and improve weight gain on your cattle, and instead is just tied up, lost in the ground. So what we're shooting for there, now it does depend on the grasses on where you want that pH to be. If you've got your cool or warm season grasses, your non-legumes, anywhere from a 6.0 to 6.5 is preferable. Now, if you've got a lot of alfalfa and you're doing a lot of legume ground, you're going to want that to be quite a bit higher, especially with alfalfa. What I've seen is peak and perfect here is anywhere from 7.0 to about 7.2 or 7.3. That really gives a proper environment where you have the highest nutrient uptake and best load there. Now, with that being said, everybody's going to focus primarily on NPK to drive yield. Now, that is never going to be our goal. Is to only focus on NPK. A lot of what you see across the country is a lot of triple blends, triple 19, triple 13, triple 15. Problem with that alone is your hay doesn't need the same amount of each nutrient. So when you're putting those down, you start leading into phosphorus poisoning in the soil. A lot of issues more than you're causing good, especially generations of doing this over and over again. The ratio there, it's about a 4-1-3 method. And so you need about 40 units of nitrogen to produce a bale of hay, whereas you only need about 10 units of phosphorus to produce a bale of hay. So way off on those numbers. Now, what do those three numbers do? We put those down every year. We fertilize. We don't look into what they really do for us, why we're putting them down, and how much of each we should really target. So nitrogen is going to be your main thing for forage quality. Nitrogen helps with chlorophyll. It improves protein synthesis inside the plant, and it is the main driver and the main engine for grass growth. But P and K are still very, very important. Your phosphorus there is going to help a lot with root development and elongation to help with uptake by the plant. Potassium uh, is phenomenal for getting good stem and keeping your hay from falling over and matting. And then, like I said, nitrogen is going to be your driving factor. What's really going to produce a lot of tonnage. Our goal at AgriTec, and what your goal should be, is not tonnage. Your goal should be quality over quantity. And reason I say that, like we started out with, you could produce a lot of a terrible thing, or you can produce a smaller amount of an amazing thing. And not only is that good for you in a sense that you're not having to spend as much to do what you need to do, it's also phenomenal for your cattle. You're not feeding them a bunch of empty nutrients that they have to expel a lot of energy to digest and utilize and try and get to the right spots of their body. You're getting them a small amount of what they need so they get the full quicker. You have to feed less hay, feed a lot less altogether. And so one thing that is very, very important to focus on is not over applying nutrients. Like I said, over applying phosphorus can cause issues. Potassium can cause serious issues. Really important that we don't over apply your potassium or phosphorus levels, which tends to be a go-to in our farming environment nowadays. So, like I said, start out with the soil sample, see where we need to be, and then move on from there. Now, NPK isn't everything you should be focused on. There's a lot more that goes into it. We'll cover later on what to look out for, what micronutrients really help a lot, and what actually assists in that nitrogen synthesis, and what aids nitrogen into forming proteins for the plant. A couple different things I want to go into before we go into that. Some tips on what to add into your hay to increase protein content and nutrient value. A great thing to do there that can cut down a lot on costs, especially nitrogen costs, is mixing legumes straight into your grasses and doing a blend. Reason for this, your clovers, especially mixing clover into it. Clovers are one of the only things that actually fixate nitrogen in the soil itself. Your soybean plant fixates nitrogen in pods on the root zone. But the beauty of a clover plant is that it's going to fixate that nitrogen in the soil and aid in the growth of your other grasses, whether that be a more cool season grass, or if you're farther south like me, growing Bermuda, it really aids in that development and pushes it forward. Now, great thing is there, whether you're mixing clover or alfalfa in, they're very, very high in protein. Legumes alone can save anywhere from 30 to 100 pounds of nitrogen per acre, depending on stand percentage and species. But with animal performance, especially in your pasture ground, improving that protein content on a daily basis where they're getting that protein intake. So many people focus on, okay, where's my hay going to be? What do I need to do? But they are neglecting their pastures. Never neglect your pasture. That's what your cattle are eating on constantly. Don't neglect it. Treat it the same way you would your hay. Now, you don't have to fertilize at the same rates, but making sure that those feed values are there in your pastures is just as important. Now, stress dilution. Red clover contains isoflavones that reduces toxic effects of endophile on tall fescue. So if you're growing fescue, mixing red clover in with it is a great way to cut down on that and really protect your cattle, your horses, whatever you got out there grazing on it. So really, really good option for mixing things in. Now, for cool season grasses, I would say clover and alfalfa is going to raise crude protein the most out of anything, and it lowers the fibers and balances your intake quite a bit. So with the alfalfa, now if you're doing alfalfa mainly, that is where you're going to be looking a lot into your P and K applications and focusing solely on P and K. Now, a little bit of nitrogen's important, but not to the extent of your standard non-legume grasses. So with our warm season grasses for extending grazing and lifting quality, especially in the summer slump, that is one of your easiest tools. Add some legumes in, fixate that nitrogen, cut down on your fertilizer cost, increase your protein. I mean, all around a really, really good way to go. Now, for managing bloat risk, make sure you don't go too high on those legumes. If you go too heavy on them, you can run into a lot of issues. And then before you turn them into a field with that mixed in, make sure that you're feeding them just straight grasses or a little bit mixed in, and then going into diluting it a little bit more. Or you can use, if you want to go more synthetic way, you can use bloat blocks for heavy clover stands. So just to get them used to that, keep the bloating from happening. As for legumes, I would say 25 to 35% on seed ratio, and then mixing your cool season or hot season grasses into that. So, really, really good way to go. Now, I'll move on to the next section that I'd like to cover today. Harvest timing and cutting. A lot of people tend to let their hay go a little too long. Just can't get out there, can't do it just right. It's kind of what I want to cover today. On stage of growth, make sure you look that up for your specific species. Now, best thing to do for grasses, best qualities coming in at the boot stage right before it comes into heading. Digestibility and protein drops sharply once the seed head emerges. The reason for that is during that reproductive stage, when the plant is trying to push a lot of nutrients into the seed to reproduce and to spread itself along your field, it is drastically reducing your protein content, and your feed value is going to go down quite a bit because those seeds are in there, and the palatability decreases exponentially. So if you do have the alfalfa and legumes in there, definitely aim for a late bud or early bloom. Cutting earlier just equals higher quality. Cutting later is more tonnage but lower RFQ. And so, yeah, you can get a lot more by cutting later, but it's gonna not be as good. You're gonna have to feed a lot more and expel a lot more energy for those cattle to digest more food to get the same amount of nutrients. So every 7 to 10 days in delay and harvest, can mean anywhere from 5 to 7 points less on crude protein and a 5 to 10% drop in digestibility. So just make sure you're cutting at the right time. Whatever grass you're growing, whether it is ryegrass, fescue, Bermuda, whatever it is, make sure that you're looking up the best time to cut it, best height to get that protein content and nutrient value that you're looking for. And then also cutting height. I had a guy tell me this a while back that most of the nitrogen from the plant is actually stored in the bottom 3 inches. And so you cut too low, you're cutting a lot of that off, harvesting it, and then it delays your jump back into your next cutting, which can really hurt you in the long run. With alfalfa, I'd say cutting about 2 to 3 inches. You can get a little bit lower than your standard grasses. By going too low hurts crown regrowth and winter survival. So make sure that you're cutting right at that 2 to 3 inch mark. And then for your cool season grasses, I would say leave about 3 to 4 inches of stubble. It's like a solar panel. It speeds recovery, really jumps it up. That sunlight can get in there and really start moving. And then for your warmer season grasses, about the same as your alfalfa. It can tolerate a little bit lower at 2 to 3 inches, but right at 3 inches tends to be the best. You get the best regrowth off of it, best nutrient value going that way. And then you go too high, you're wasting a lot of yield, you're leaving a lot out there. And so make sure you're right at those levels for whatever grass you're growing, and it'll speed you up a lot going into your next cutting. Now, for cutting it, your swath matters a lot. You create too tight of windrows, and it's going to take a lot longer to dry out. A lot of issues where it stays wetter, respires longer, and loses a lot of energy. And you're going to lose a lot of nutrients from it taking so long to dry out. It can also cause splitting issues with it as well. So make sure that swath is a lot wider and that your windrows are a bit wider, so that way you can get it off the field, get it out of there where the sun can get back down on that grass, and you can boost yourself going forward. Once you get it out of the field, once it's baled, once it's ready to go, the key there is focusing on storage. Now, your storage matters a lot. Outdoor storage, uncovered storage can equal out to anywhere from a 5 to 35% dry matter loss, versus humid or rainy climates. Down here in Texas, that's our go-to. So the key there is making sure it's wrapped correctly, making sure it's in covered storage where you're keeping out that humidity. And even if you're in a non-humid environment, making sure it's covered is going to be key to really getting the best quality possible. Make sure it's on a well-drained surface if you can. Pallets are an easy way to go, to where if moisture does get in there, it has that airflow to dry out a lot quicker. And if you don't have covered storage, putting it on some pallets, and then covering it with a giant tarp is going to be the key to getting that good coverage and keeping the water out. But with shed storage, it's going to cut losses about 2 to 5% more than anything else that you can do. Investing in that shed storage is going to save you a lot of money in the long run. That being said, I would say the haymaking checklist to when you're going to cut is lay it wide so it can dry fast. Condition stems, don't pulverize leaves. A rake above 40% moisture. Bale at safe moisture and density, and then store covered off the ground. So make sure you do those. It's as important to focus on that when you're cutting and baling as it is what's going into the soil. So next thing, I referenced this before, what do we not usually think of on forage quality that makes the biggest difference in what we need? Like I said, everybody focuses on NPK. What do I need to put out 300 pounds of triple 19 and then lime every 3 years and I'm good to go. If you look at your soil sample, there's a little thing on the bottom full of micronutrients that will save you a lot of money in the long run. First and foremost, I'm going to go into calcium. Now, that's my favorite nutrient out of all of them, micronutrient especially. Reason for that, just like with pH, and they go hand in hand, your nutrient uptake increases with calcium. Calcium is a trucker nutrient, so it's going to help nutrients get into the plant more efficiently, help them be absorbed and utilized by the plant, especially nitrogen. Nitrogen relies on the back of calcium almost more than anything else. So make sure you're getting proper levels of calcium down. If your soil sample shows it, which most do, it's going to come up on there as base saturation level. Make sure that you're checking for anywhere from 60 to 75% base saturation level of calcium. Like I said before, keeping that pH at the right level for the forage that you are growing. And then for soil structure, calcium is huge on that. It breaks down clay particles to help with aeration and drainage. The best thing about drainage and water infiltration is it's not holding it on the surface where it is drowning the plant. It's holding it in the soil like a sponge, helping with drought prevention and keeping the water in the soil for a lot longer where you can utilize it, not just drowning your plant because it can't breathe. Now, for, like I said, nutrient balance, it doesn't just help with nitrogen. Every other thing relies on the back of calcium, especially potassium, magnesium. The calcium on forage quality, one of the reasons why I like to focus on that so much on my farm is, shoot, a huge portion of your cow is made up of calcium. I mean, their bone density is based on it. I mean, if you have a dairy, your milk supply is all based on calcium. Getting the proper levels of calcium in the soil will save you a lot in the long run by getting the calcium levels up in your cattle. And so the second one I like to focus on the micronutrient levels is your sulfur. Now, everybody knows, like, was that about 10 years ago? All the laws were passed. Good for the environment, bad for the farmer. But now that we don't have acid rain, you've got to focus on your sulfur. Reason for that, hay relies heavily on sulfur applications. Nitrogen and sulfur go hand in hand just as much as calcium and sulfur do. Maybe just a little bit less, but you're going to really hurt your crude protein levels and have pale new growth if you don't focus on those sulfur levels and make sure that they're where they need to be. Now, it's really easy to check. Every soil sample is going to show you right there. All right, this is what I have for sulfur. This is where I need to be. How much do I need to put down? And the great thing about it is it's not like your nitrogen where you have to go out and put on an absolute ton of it, but you can do lower levels and affect the grass quite a bit higher. And then foliar applications, sulfur is a great way to put it right in the plant. Do not apply all your sulfur at once. Has a super high burn effect. It's going to cause a lot of issues, and the soil life on sulfurs, if I'm correct, I could be wrong on this, is shorter than any other nutrient. I'd have to look into that for sure, but it's only 30 days. So put it down when you need it. If you can do it every cutting, do it every cutting. You're going to thank yourself when you look at those soil samples and see your tissue samples and see that your crude protein and total digestible nutrients are reacting so well off of it. But you need the sulfur to get the growth and the protein that your cattle need, that your grass need, that everything needs to give you the best forage quality possible. Now, Boron is one that you can't look past. It's a lot smaller doses than anything else on the ones we've covered so far. It makes a huge role. So throughout the season, you're only looking at about 1 to 2 pounds an acre. It's not much, but it helps with nitrogen metabolism and protein synthesis by helping plants move sugars and nutrients, including nitrogen, through the plant. Boron is deficient. Nitrogen can transport and conversion to protein are impaired, leading to lower protein levels and reduced nitrogen efficiency. So, if you don't focus on your boron or your sulfur or your calcium and you just focus on nitrogen, eventually you're going to go, why is my nitrogen not doing what it used to do? When I first bought this place, or when my granddaddy had it, everything, when we put down nitrogen, it would react way better than it does today. Now you used up your supply, put down your boron, put down your sulfur, make sure that pH is right, and you get everything else in line. Now, magnesium, that's a little easier one to manage. Most soils do have a bit more magnesium in them, but very important for cattle, very important for the plant. It's critical for chlorophyll. Make sure your magnesium is correct. Now, great option for that I use on my own farm is Epsom salt applications if you need magnesium and sulfur. Epsom salt's a great way to go. Very inexpensive for nutrient applications, and I mean it's water soluble, so you just mix it with water and then spray it on. Very, very, very inexpensive. So great source of magnesium if you need it quick and fast. Dolomitic limestone's a great option as well, but takes a lot longer to get to the plant. Takes a lot longer to get into the grasses. That's a quick, fast way to do a two-in-one application where you get your sulfur and magnesium at a low cost at the same time. Now, zinc, copper, and manganese, they're enzyme activators. Deficiencies are more common in high pH soils or heavily manured soils. So if you're using chicken litter, cattle manure, horse manure to fertilize, make sure that you're checking those zinc, copper, and manganese levels. Or if your pH is too high. Now, there's areas across the country where the base saturation level of calcium is 80 to 90%, or you over applied limestone in an area and your pH goes up too much, it's going to lock up those nutrients. So you do need to put them down. They're very important for your nutrient value, getting those up. But your total digestible nutrients relies on all of these, and you have to focus on all of them if you want to save money and get the cattle exactly what they're needing to have the proper weight gain and for your cost of gains to go down. Now, iron, it's usually abundant, especially in the United States. That one also can lock up in high pH soils. If you need it, definitely recommend putting it down, but it's not as common just because of how abundant it actually is. One thing that I find so fascinating about our soil makeup and our cattle, ourselves, everything else is microbial bacteria. Your same microbes that are in your soil for breaking down nutrients and turning them into usable nutrients for the plant are the same microbes as in your cattle's gut in the rumen. And so, if you aren't focusing on soil microbes and focusing on getting those levels up, you're shooting yourself in the foot and having to spend a lot more on potassium that you wouldn't need to. Like Nathaniel went over in our last webinar. What was it? 3% of soil makeup is potassium. And so focusing on those soil microbes is not only going to be a huge thing for your soil, for cutting down on fertility needs, but also you're increasing microbes in the rumen and in the gut of the cattle, which is going to help a lot with digestion. But I always like to use an analogy with all of this. Weight gain is a lot like a bodybuilder. With cattle, you are looking to put on muscle for a low cost. Well, what do bodybuilders do? I mean, they're not going out there and eating McDonald's every day and eating all these terrible things for them or eating a bunch of bread. They're looking for the most nutrient dense, high protein things that they can eat. So why aren't we doing that with our cattle? And then we wonder ourselves, I don't need to focus on all this. And then the vet comes to us and like, well, your cattle, you need to put out lick tubs, you need to do this, you need to supplement all this on the side because you're not feeding them those nutrients on a daily basis. You're going to spend the money. It just depends on whether you're going to put it in the grass and to the soil health to where they can get it on a daily basis, or you're going to supplement it later on. And so the key is How do I get the protein content as high as I need to? How do I get my nutrient value as high as I need to? Or I don't have to supplement all these things that I can just put straight into the plant and it'll feed my cattle on a daily basis. And when I cut, harvest my hay, uh, they're getting that all winter long. That is the key. Let's see here. Let's go into a couple things that I like to do. One of the big things is going to be tissue sampling. Soil sampling is great as a start and an idea of where we're going to head throughout this growing season. But nature has its own mindset that we can never really tell what it's going to do. Is it going to over rain? Is it going to under rain? Is my plant going to be stressed out because it's drowning, or is it going to be stressed out because it doesn't get enough? Are we going to get it just right? But yeah, tissue sampling is a very cheap, very easy way to see deficiencies before you bale and to address those. Like with my hay this year, going in on my first cutting, I pulled a tissue sample about halfway through, right as I was getting about 10 days out from being ready to cut. What I noticed was, even though I put down a bunch of nitrogen, I was low on nitrogen and I was low on sulfur. My calcium levels were perfect, phosphorus, potassium, micronutrients, but the nitrogen sulfur was low. I went out with our Pro Sol, hit it, targeted it, and was able to adjust those. Whereas if you pull it, the soil sample is not going to tell you that that's going to happen. It might give you an idea that it might. Pulling that tissue sample halfway through will allow you to go out and treat it really quickly and address that issue where you're not affecting yourself later on. Now, that isn't just on those levels. It will cover pretty much everything that you're needing, nutrient wise, and what you're deficient in, but a great, inexpensive way to test everything and really easy. I mean, you just send them into Midwest labs or pretty much anywhere that does them, and they'll have your results back pretty quickly. Now, we've been talking a lot about forage quality tests today, right? So, what is the best way to test forage quality? What you're looking for is either a basic wet chemistry panel, which is going to give you moisture, crude protein, ADF, and NDF on fiber fractions, and TDN. Sometimes it includes minerals. It depends on who you're going through. And if you can get an expanded version, NIR forage analysis would be the other one. So faster and cheaper, but it's based on calibration curves. It gives you your crude protein, ADF, NDF, TDN, and sometimes RNV. Best for hay, silage, pasture samples that match lab calibration set. Where is the best place to go? So I like to use Midwest Labs, just personal preference. Dairy One does it as well, Rock River, and a lot of different places do it. Midwest Labs makes it easy. I'm not sponsored. I just really like them. But package 6 includes the CP, which would be your crude protein, ADF, NDF, TDN, RNV, and RFQ, plus optional NDFD sampling. And so it is a full panel, gives you everything that you need to not only know what your cattle are eating, but if you're selling hay as well, that is a huge selling point. It takes you from saying you have really good hay to being able to prove it on paper. You're no longer selling a Honda Civic, and now you're up to your brand new F-250. The key there is showing your customers, showing yourself, what am I feeding my cattle? What am I doing to really improve their feed quality if you're selling it, or improve my cattle's feed to where I don't have to supplement this on the side. I have to get this mineral block. I have to do all these different things, this lick tub. You don't have to do all that. If you add it in as the soil needs it, as the plant needs it, it's going to save you a lot in the long run. And so I'll kind of leave you with that. And it is a process. In the long run, it's going to save you a lot of money. Increasing all of these is going to increase your quantity by quite a bit. If you focus on quality, your quantity is going to increase. Now, if you just focus on quantity, your quality is not going to increase. If you just go out there and do NPK, you're going to make a lot of hay. It's going to be empty. And so make sure that you're focusing on, what am I selling? What's in it? What are my animals going to get out of it? Or what are my clients' animals going to get out of it? Because at the end of the day, they are your clients, and having that as a selling point is the difference between cattle hay at $30 and cattle hay at $50, especially horse people. But I'd like to go into a Q&A section now. I know that we've had the chat going a little bit. I've been seeing it in the background. So let's just start up at the top and we'll kind of go through this. Does this webinar apply to horse hay as well? Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I just said there, your horses are very specific on what they're needing. Having the wrong grasses, having the wrong quality is going to affect your horses just as much as your cattle and their health. You're going to have a lot more vet bills. And so increasing that protein content, getting the right things out there, especially we went into fescue, into file on fescue for, especially down here in the South, we have that problem quite a bit. And so making sure that you're feeding the right thing, having that protein content always in their feed, making sure the protein content's up from nitrogen synthesis or adding in legumes to feed it on a daily basis. And then also your micronutrients, P and K. I can't stress this enough. Your pH is absolutely important. It should never go by the wayside. If anything, always get your pH up. The soil will unlock a lot for you that you didn't know what was there because you got your pH up. So make sure your pH is up. Make sure it's just right. Next one, Delvey. How do you propose covering large round bales, 300 plus in Southwest Oklahoma? A little bit more difficult. Now it is a process, with that quantity of large brown bales, the size of barn is going to be pretty intense. The key is looking into the right wrapping to where it can breathe, but it can't get moisture in and it's wicking moisture out. So make sure that you're getting the right wrapping and wrap your hay. Or you can do tarping, tarp it, put it on a pallet. Great way to keep it off the ground, keep mold spores from forming, and keep that moisture out. But wrapping it is a really good option to help keep the moisture out. But the right wrap is key. None of these seem cost feasible, ease of use when feeding, or compatible with Oklahoma wind. Yeah, definitely difficult. It all goes into what you can do. And what you can afford to do. Evaluate your options. What you can reuse, what I would say is going to be the best. But 300 bales, it does make it a difficult process uncovering it. But if you can find a method out of those that is cost feasible and time feasible for you, that can protect your hay, you're going to thank yourself in the long run. Now, it all comes down to what's going to work best for your specific scenario. But wrapping, covering, or shedding it is going to be a really good option. Keep it from getting wet. And then, do herbicides or other sprays negatively affect microbes in the soil? Great question. I like you. So, yes, you're not just nuking your grasses. You are nuking your soil microbes, especially grazon. Quite a few states have passed laws that if you apply grazon and you sell hay that has grazon in it, you have to disclose that because it can actually go through the rumen of animals and then it'll get into the poop. And if you put that on vegetables or you put that out into a field, it will nuke them, especially vegetables. I would say it's not about not using herbicides. The key is using them at the right time and not overdoing it and using the right one that's going to target it where you don't have to keep going out constantly throughout the year. One that I've seen covers a lot of broad spectrum weeds is going to be Duracor. But your 2,4-D and those, just not over applying them, getting the right amount on to target the weeds that you need to target. And then if you have a section that isn't having any weeds come up, stay off that section or go back in or mix in with it a prebiotic. Because you can mix in a prebiotic like our BioAct to reduce those negative effects because it's increasing the soil microbes as you're decreasing them and increasing them about tenfold to what you're decreasing. So it's a great way to, even though you're causing damage, you're fixing it at the same time. I would highly recommend that. I mix in prebiotics to every one of my herbicide passes specifically for that reason. It really helps bring that soil back to life and keeping you from doing more damage than you're doing good with the herbicides. So I would definitely recommend doing that. And then a lot of weeds can be taken care of with pH, especially broomsedge. It feeds off hydrogen. So raise your pH, get that in check, and your broomsedge will disappear. It happened on my own place. It's wild to see. It's there one year you lime or apply our ADV-CAL, and it is just wiped. It is pretty cool. And to get it out of the field, I don't know about you guys, but it drives me nuts. And so getting that out of there definitely puts a smile on my face. Anyways, so as Nate was saying there, broad spectrum herbicides, glyphosate, paraquat, studies show glyphosate can alter microbial diversity and reducing beneficial fungi like mycorrhiza and allowing opportunistic bacteria to increase. Residual herbicides, atrazine, simazine, and the persistence of soil can suppress microbial respiration and enzyme activity. So basically, what he's saying is kind of what we went over there before. Trying to get away from those completely is going to be very, very difficult. Now, the thing about your grasses is there's only so much space in your field. If you can fertilize your grasses right and get the proper environment for your grass, it is going to drastically decrease the room for pesky weeds. And so the more you can increase those grasses, overseed, fertilize correctly, and get those nutrients right where they need to be, and the soil pH where you need to be, it's going to crowd out the weeds and compete really, really well with them. It's all a competition. Who can compete better? You got two football teams, and one of them is your grasses, and the other one is the weeds. And the key is getting your players to outcompete, and that is exactly what you're doing, is outcompeting those weeds and taking over the field by just taking up room. Kevin asked Nate, how do you get weeds out of the hayfield? I've always had an issue with broomsedge. pH is perfect. I would definitely check one. It's kind of like seeing a doctor. Always look for a second opinion, right? If your pH is perfect and you still have sage grass, pull a soil sample through somebody else. Sometimes they can be wrong. Every soil sample facility tests differently. Not every single one, but they do different tests. There was a study done back, I think, in like 2019. They took the same sample of dirt and sent it to 10 different labs and got different pHs from each one. Double check it. Hydrogen is what feeds your sage grass. And so if you can reduce the hydrogen levels, the only reason hydrogen is there is because you have a lack of other nutrients, whether it's calcium, potassium, magnesium, any positively charged ion, cation is going to make up that soil structure. When those go down, your hydrogen levels increase to fill the void. And so you have to replace them with those key nutrients. And so if it says your pH is perfect and you still have sage grass, I would definitely check into one, getting another sample that shows base saturation level so you can see the hydrogen level. Also, just making sure your fertility is just right. pH isn't everything. It's letting you know there is a problem, but not letting you know what the problem is. So make sure that you're looking at base saturation levels. It'll give you a lot clearer picture on what you need. Delvey, net wrap is common. Is there one that is more moisture resistant than others? I hate using any type of chemical, but my father, who's an old farmer, said in his way it's difficult to convince him on new ideas or regenerative farming, etc. The thing is, it's not about cutting out all those practices. It's about how you can modify things to best suit your needs. The key is to look into what's going to work best for you. Now, for what you're doing there, so yeah, for the hay wrapping, like Nate's saying there, tighter, it is a good way to go. Limiting oxygen and water penetration. Plastic wrap's going to keep out the most. That's a really good one to go with. It's just any kind of plastic for net wrapping. Make sure that it is super tight, but plastic wrapping, if you can do it and you have a wrapper, make sure that you can do plastic because that does a phenomenal job with it. Kevin said, "How does ADV-CAL get rid of broom sage? I've seen the pamphlets, but it doesn't really explain it or how it fixes pH rather than using lime." Okay, so Kevin, great question. That's actually my favorite question. So I just told our guys in here, I was like, I wish they would have asked me to do a webinar about calcium because I would rather do about calcium. So the beauty of it, like I was mentioning before, everybody thinks that low pH is some magic thing. pH stands for potential hydrogen, and it's just an acronym. And so all you're reading is hydrogen level. Hydrogen is in the atmosphere and can only replace void. And that's all. All it is. It's when something's used up. Where's my? There it is. All right. We're gonna do the water bottle method. So take this water bottle for example. If I have this water bottle and say these are all my nutrients, right? I've got 75% calcium, 4 to 6% potassium, 10, 15% magnesium. Say I'm the plant, right? I take a drink of that water, and those nutrients start getting used up. What starts replacing the void? Well, in this case, it's oxygen coming into the water bottle. But what you see on this representation is hydrogen. So as soon as those plants start, and your grasses, your corn and soybeans start absorbing the nutrients, especially the ones that make up your cation exchange capacity, your positively charged ions, it something has to fill the void. Just like with that glass of water, it's going to pull something into the soil to fill that void. In the form of hydrogen, is what's going to get pulled in. What we're doing there, especially with the ADV-CAL, is just putting down an available source of calcium that the soil needs to replace that void and to build up that soil makeup and push the hydrogen out. Just like what you're doing with limestone, just in a different method, something that doesn't have to take a year to break down. You're just building up those calcium levels. You can actually increase pH by applying potassium, magnesium, because they are cations. They make up soil structure. So you're just replacing the void. I have a lot of people come to me and go, my calcium's at 75% base saturation level, and I can't figure out why my pH won't go up. They keep telling me I need to put on lime. I'm like, no, you don't need to put on lime. It says right here that you have no potassium in your ground. You have a void there. Apply potassium. Your soil's telling you what you need. Apply potassium, get those levels up. So all we're doing with ADV-CAL is the same process that you're doing with limestone. We're neutralizing the acidity with and displacing the hydrogen ions in the soil and leaching them out by oversaturating the soil with calcium. Calcium is a very heavy nutrient, and so it leaches it down, and you have that hydrogen leach out through the water systems and everything else, replacing it in the soil chemistry, so that way you have that ideal base saturation level of 75%. Your broomsedge is feeding off of hydrogen. The main food source for the plant is calcium, makes up the outer cell wall. It's the building block of the plant. Um, that's why every nutrient absorption is built on the back of calcium. It's yin yang. It's the complete opposite with your broomsedge. It feeds off hydrogen. So if you remove that food source, it's like wicking the soil of calcium, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, all the things we've gone over today. You're wicking that hydrogen out and starving out the sage grass to where it just chokes it out, kills it off. It's simple process, but people like to make it a little bit more complicated than it needs to be. It's really just about refilling your cup, refilling your soil, and getting that hydrogen back out. So great way to go there. But yeah, great question, Kevin. Cost per pounds, you're looking at about 60 to 90 cents per pound on cost of gains. Huge difference of getting that forage quality up. Like I said, your vet bills are going to go down a lot. Your synthetic inputs and lick tubs and everything else that were that people try and get us to buy these days are going to go up exponentially. It's the same reason why if you're eating steak and having a good diet, you don't have to take as many vitamins and you're not seeing the doctor as much. The cattle are the same way. The horses are the same way. If you give them what they need on a daily basis, you won't have to give it to them because the doctor tells you you have to take it, right? You're not going to show up at the doctor going, man, I don't feel very good. Well, you've been eating McDonald's every single day. Go back and eat a steak. Go back and eat some vegetables. Johnny, when you have digestible tons instead of total tons, how do I measure that on my own hay test? So the key there to pulling those forage quality tests is you can take it pre or post cut on forage quality. It depends on what you're looking to do, but you definitely need to mark it on there, whether it's a wet test or dry test. One of the ways I like to do it is you can get a tool and do like almost like a core, like you would do off of a soil sample, to pull a hay sample from a bale right before you go out and cut. Just walk around your field. I use a set of scissors when I do it this way, and I just cut it, throw it in the bag, and then get different areas to where I can get a broad spectrum of what I'm looking at on my hay. And that's a really good way to take those. The digestible tons instead of total tons just comes down to feed value. So if you have digestible tons, that means you have really nutrient dense hay and what the cattle is actually using to put on weight gain versus total tons is just a bragging right of, I made 6, 7, 8 bales an acre. That doesn't matter to your cow. What matters to your cow is what they're eating. And then Kevin also said, if I apply AdV-CAL at the recommended rates, along with whatever else my soil sample shows are needed, how long should I expect to see broomsedge begin to disappear? Great question. So it goes pretty quickly. Once you start getting those nutrient levels right and you start getting your cation levels corrected, especially with AdV-CAL, I've seen it wipe out sage grass within 30 days. Sometimes it can take a little bit longer. I've seen it take up to about 4 months. But if you get those nutrient levels right, it'll blow your mind on how quick it'll take care of that sage grass problem and really get those grasses in shape. For me, yeah, it was about, I'd say 45 days on my fields, on when I saw them getting choked out and disappearing. So it was pretty cool. What is rate per acre and cost of AdV-CAL? Broad question. The rate per acre depends on calcium base saturation and pH. I would say general sense, we're averaging out at 4 to 5 gallons an acre. But the key there is talking to your local soil advisor and getting a tailored rate based on your needs. Whether you have broom sage, where your pH is at, or your base saturation level of calcium is at, and how much you need to apply. Because over applying calcium will, like we went over in the forage study, lock up a lot of micronutrients like zinc, manganese, and iron. And so making sure that you're not over applying or under applying is key. And cost does vary depending on quantity size. If you're looking at a mid-sized farm and looking at like our totes, you'd be looking at uh, about $13 a gallon for AdV-CAL, or about 26 ton equivalent. So you're coming out at a very, very good price on it. Definitely reach out to your local soil advisor because they're great. They can tailor it to exactly what you need. What can I do for too much moisture in my hay? Like I was saying before, if you're trying to dry out your hay quicker, make sure that you're doing those wider windrows where you're not stacking it up too heavily. It's going to take a lot longer to dry out. Laying it out flat, giving the sun time to get to it and dry it out is going to save you a lot of money in the long run, especially if you bale it too wet and have mold issues coming in. Keeping that moisture out is key. But yeah, Joe, back to you. Rate and cost per acre, depending on where you're located, reach out to our local soil advisor. That's our main line. If you call Kami, she'll redirect you to your local soil advisor. And every single one of them, you got some of the brightest minds I've met, and they will tell you exactly what you need, get it for the best price that they can, and really, really great people to work with. I would definitely reach out to them, Joe, and get a tailored price on it. But it is AdV-CAL out of everything on my farm. I can't go without it. They're the difference it's made in my hay and the quality, and especially the quality. But that is a phenomenal product and ease of application. Trying to get limestone down here in Texas is half impossible, and I've got fields that you can't even hardly get into with a tractor, much less a limestone buggy. So, getting in there with a sprayer, being able to spray it on a fraction of the time on application, and ease of application makes it worth every penny. Most of the time, you're gonna be saving a lot of money. Tending is very hard on clover and keeping the leaves on. Any suggestions, perhaps running a tender at a slower RPM? Yeah, I'd slow down RPM just to not break it up so much. Yeah, I would say slow down your RPMs a little bit. Try out a couple different things. I don't have as much clover mixed into mine. I do in my winter grasses, but I would say with attending it, I would definitely slow it down just a little bit. When I see a lot of times when guys cut their hays that they like to move too quick. They want to get it done too fast, and they run into more issues, and it ends up saving them less time and less money by trying to fly across it. So lower RPMs. Yes, on tending, use a hay preservative. Yeah, for hay preservatives, I would look into that. Don't know too much there. I would say try out the lower RPM. Try a couple different things to really see what the best way to keep it together is going to be. Well, perfect, guys. I think that's going to conclude it for today. Uh, Thank you guys for attending. It is always good to talk to you guys, and if I touch you anything, that makes me a very, very happy person. Doing hay myself is it's a pretty big process, but getting to see those nutrient levels go up and that protein content go up, and know that my cattle are getting the best hay in the county because I'm doing that, is something to be proud of. And I know every single person a part of this can feel the same way. And so focus on your micronutrient levels, your pH, testing. They'll save you a lot of money in the long run on buying things that companies want you to buy. And so thank you guys for attending. Join us again next month. We'd love to see you. And thank you guys. Have a good evening.